Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I am, of course, Nick McDaniel, and as always, I am joined by the Weasel, Myron.
Yes. Hey, folks, if you can't see this, I'm wearing a neck brace. I had trouble keeping my neck straight. So I will be wearing this neck brace as long as I can tolerate it from the show so you can continue to maintain eye contact with me. Yes. It's another day in wrestling. It's another day in independent and the WWE wrestling. And here we are to talk about it tonight.
Well, that and amongst many, many other things. It was funny when we started the pre-show, which you can find on patreon.com/tapped out pod. We really didn't think there was going to be a ton of talk about. And then, of course, we slapped together another fun-filled show, we think.
Yes. Yes.
Much
like that TJ Perkins guy, we can always slap our own ass in this thing.
Something like that, right? But yeah, if you've never experienced it, patreon.com/tapped-out-pod. We think it's well worth the money because you got, like, this show, we went an hour, in something minutes, right?
Yeah.
Hour and 15, 20 minutes beforehand. So I think I always check it out because you'll hear us because, there's a bunch of other topics we talk about. Obviously, as you can read the crawl there, what we're going to talk about tonight is there was a Raw segment that had Brock Lesnar on it. That stemmed us into a babyface heel conversation that actually we heard from, some, which we'll get into later. It was a discussion last week. The women's evolution, is it fading without Ronda Rousey? That's a pretty
that's a very good question because that was something topical Becky Lynch talked about.
Yeah, and so we're going to get into that a little bit. There was a cool Impact signing this week, and there's a little bit of other news about their TV deal. We've been kind of hot about them getting out of their deal with the Pursuit Channel and going somewhere else, and AXS was something that's going on.
I like we get more views than the Pursuit Channel.
It seems like it, right? Then, one of them was there was an article written by Steve Cooks over at thechairshot.com. It was about your standards for wrestling promotions. Should they be different? Are they different? Why they're different? We'll dip into that a little bit. Of course, as always, there's a little bit of Georgia indie wrestling talk, and then of course the second edition of the 3 on Tap. We'll get there about what the topics are. It's going to be podcast related, so we'll leave it there. You can, figure that out at the end because we always want your opinions on the 3 on Tap of what yours are too. But let's go to the big time, man. It's where we always try to start, unless something crazy's happened. And something did happen crazy on Raw this week. Is everybody saying that it was a very heavy, Paul Heyman influenced episode. And that Brock Lesnar segment was off the charts.
I ain't complaining about it at all. We have to understand that Brock Lesnar is a heel, and Brock Lesnar is over as a heel. He's totally legit. So if you want to make a babyface over, what do? You
get some heat.
You get some heat. And how do you get a babyface heat? You beat the hell out of him. It's happened all through wrestling. It's a hot tag situation. You bring out another heel. You make sympathy by having him beat. Look, he pulled him out of an ambulance. How much more sympathy can you get? Get him to the hospital. He threw his stretcher down and continued to beat him.
Well, let's back. If you didn't catch Raw this week, just real quick, we'll catch you up to speed. Brock Lesnar basically interferes in a match, but Ziggler's Rollins. And he just decimates Rollins. Seth Rollins is being carried out on a stretcher. Cool. By the way, kudos goes to Jimmy Wrestling on Twitter, friend of the show, who pointed out something that I think will show you the detail that Paul Heyman pays attention to that maybe across the board some non-wrestling people don't. What Jimmy pointed out was the Usos and Roman Reigns got into a brawl with Samoa Joe and the OC right before he was put into the ambulance. Well, why is that important? Is because when Brock Lesnar, it jumps him in the ambulance, it explains why they're not helping him. So kudos to detail and kudos for Jimmy Wrestling for pointing that out.
That guy, I can't wait to see you in November. I'm bringing beer this time.
Yeah, beer in the bar at WrestleCade. We'll see you there, Jimmy. And then, of course, Brock Lesnar attacks, puts the beat down on him again, hits another F5. So, but and like I said, it's trying to put some sympathy on Seth Rollins because let's be honest with you, as of late, it's faded.
Yes, Seth Rollins is the least sympathetic babyface I've ever seen. He can't talk. He can't get over. And they got him working Dolph Ziggler, who is the same guy. He's a heel that can't get over. They're phenomenal wrestlers. They put on great matches that nobody wants to watch. They put on techniques. They put on clinics. Nobody wants to watch it because nobody feels about it. I want to see wrestling I care about. Their entire very well done match pales in comparison to Brock coming out there and just smashing him and doing all that stuff to him. Brock is a heel. Brock is over. You want to get somebody over, you put them against an over person, and that's how this works. I mean, I'm not a playwright or a booker, but I've read enough books and I've seen enough movies to understand you set the babyface up, you put them in a place where they can't come back from, and then they come back and triumph over evil. How many movies have just been like? I mean, every story in history, every good story is like that. From the Avengers to Star Wars to every Shakespeare play.
Spoiler alert, I'm about to say something from a movie that's old now. So if I'm spoiling it, you deserve it. So think about this. Even they built so much heat. Empire Strikes Back was this way, by the way. Everybody ends and goes, God, it's the worst ending of a movie ever because the heels got over. Avengers, the Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking Thanos gets over. I mean, Thanos gets ultimate heat. I mean, he wins that battle. And then they have to fight an Endgame. They have to fight uphill to try to, we're not going to spoil that one because that one's I think that actually literally came out Tuesday on DVD at this point. So.
But folks, seriously, let's just get over. I love this. And I have the fault with AEW. I can't tell you who's the bad guy. I can't tell you who's the good guy. I can't get sympathy. Okay, they announced their first match, Sammy Guevara versus Cody Rhodes. I don't know what that's going to do. I don't know how that's going to work. Is Cody going to squash him? I'm all for that. He's a mid-card guy. That would make sense.
Well, he ran with Hangman, remember? At the last pay-per-view, or the last live. Yeah. So, I mean, are they building him to be? Is he a new star they're going to build up and stuff? But I see what you're saying, and that's just it. I mean, Brock is clearly a heel because he doesn't care about anything but being champion.
Mm-hmm.
No rules, doesn't care about the fans, doesn't care about anything but that.
He doesn't care about wrestling at all. And you hate him. And you get on there and post, he's a shitty champion. He only defends his belt every once in a while. But you're still posting about him. And he's still over. He's in your head, and that's how this works.
And right now, like you said, I know, so we've had this conversation about baby faces and heels before, and this to me is one of the epitomes of it. Brock being fully aware of who he is a heel. He doesn't say, it was great, by the way. I mean, we have to reference it. It was obviously one of the videos that Stephen Platinum put out about the baby faces and heels talking about it. And this is a lot of where this stemmed from in this conversation. Brock doesn't want attention as far as like, look at me, love me. It's literally, I'm going to be the champion at all costs, no matter what. End of the story. That's it. And he's not worried about wrestling for you. He's not a fighting champion. He's just a freaking champion.
Yes.
If if I'm only going to show up and defend my title 6 or 7 times a year, somebody beat me. If that's if you're sick of seeing it.
I'm the show. I'm the event. You have to work to me, and it works for him.
Mm-hmm. And that was, like I said, you brought up the concerns with AEW, and that's exactly where we are. We've heard that the things of and you've seen it. I shouldn't say we've heard it. That AEW looks to be booked with shades of gray. Like everybody's, ambiguous. I mean, because the biggest heel they have is MJF.
Yes,
but he's portraying he's best buddies with Cody Rhodes, who's one of the top baby faces, maybe. But
Well, his wife looks like a heel, but maybe he's a babyface. But then a heel comes out and hits him. And then Tully Blanchard, who is a heel identified, goes and becomes the manager for the heel, hits Cody with a chair. But then they come out and play the chair was gimmick. And then
But see, Sean Spears is a heel. And you know, guess what? The only way we know it, he has a heel manager.
I mean, why is it so hard? Why do I need a promotion? I mean, not a promotion. Why do I need a program? I shouldn't need a program. I shouldn't need a syllabus to watch wrestling.
And
Okay?
I'll tell you this. You know what one of the answers I was given? Somebody said to me, well, that's because they're running it like a true sport. And it's more athletic competition than pro. And you know what I tell them? The best football games. I'm an NFL fan. We're Georgia fans here. But if you even go to the NFL level, the biggest draws on Super Bowls. Now, the Super Bowls are big anyway. Maybe that's a bad example. Even playoff games. When you have games like Dallas Cowboys versus your home, you freaking hate the Dallas Cowboys. Everybody. If you're not a fan, then they're hated.
Cowboys, Redskins, Cowboys, Eagles, those rivalry, Saints and Falcons.
Right now, it's the Patriots. Everybody wants to see the heel group because guess what? The evil Patriots, they cheat, they deflate balls, they do this, they do that, and you know what? They're the heels of the NFL, and everybody wants to see them lose.
But they feel strongly about them.
Alabama, they're heels.
Alabama's a heel because they win all the time, and you really want to see Nick Saban humbled.
And so when you have big games, people like Georgia. Georgia's a likable program. Kirby Smart, it's a new upcomer, blah, blah, blah. So when Georgia plays Bama, guess what? You've got a babyface versus a heel. It'll draw. So I respectfully disagree when people say we want shades of gray and we're not going to have baby faces and heels because we're going to treat it like a sporting,
Well, if you're going to present it like a legitimate sporting promotion, you need to be legitimately fighting. And then when you come out and say we gimmick the chair, you take that away.
Right.
These guys are shooting themselves in the foot over and over again. Make wrestling like I understand wrestling. I study wrestling, but everybody else doesn't. People just want to turn on the TV and see a show they understand. And that's not the way it's working. If I have to watch a series of videos and prepare and get a cast listing for a show, it's not going to be as interesting as a show I just sit down and relax and enjoy.
And you still always want that good guy, bad guy. I loved your analogy on the pre-show. If you want to know the movie that you pointed out, which I'm not going to tell here, because they should go to patreon.com/tap.pod and hear your analogy, because it popped me when you said the movie. But, like I said, I just think that's part of the weakness in general in wrestling right now. Jim Ross pointed that out on a podcast recently where he said it's the lack of heels, and he specifically said any promotion.
Well, that's the thing. Stone Cold was saying, let Kevin Owens run with this. Let Kevin Owens do it. Because Kevin Owens could really get over in this situation and be a anti-babyface to the McMahon heel. But they're not allowing things to establish. You're not allowing people to establish their characters enough to be a babyface or a heel.
And that's important because just it's the longevity of you got to have the character. And it's all about connecting to the fan on that level.
Mm-hmm.
Another area in WWE we wanted to point out where people seem to just. There's a couple theories we're going to get into, and this is but we were asking, is the WWE Women's Evolution fading? And the key part of this whole equation is it since Ronda Rousey left?
Well, Becky brought this up in an interview. Becky Lynch was interviewed. I can't remember the name of the promotion or the publication, and they said, can you do another Evolution pay-per-view? Which is not scheduled, by the way. They don't have Evolution on the calendar anymore. Mm-mm. Can you do another Evolution pay-per-view without Ronda Rousey? And she said yes. I have to disagree. Because as much as I love what the WWE Women's Division is doing, they've lost steam since Rousey left. How? Charlotte. Becky Lynch, all that talent, and it's just losing steam.
Do you want me to tell you my theory?
What was that?
I can tell you why. I know you want to know, right? That's otherwise we wouldn't be doing the show, right? Nobody wants to hear, right? Ronda Rousey was the straw that stirred the drink.
Oh,
Here, listen to me out. Becky got over, whether people want to admit it or not, it was because everybody knew it was coming to the battle between Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey.
mm-hmm.
I mean, we complained about Charlotte being involved and all of that or whatever. So be it. Charlotte and Ronda Rousey, another thing everybody wanted to see.
Yep.
Alexa Bliss, even though she got squashed, it was the hype of Alexa Bliss going into who? Ronda Rousey. Everyone across the board. Nia Jax, her best thing was her battle with Ronda Rousey.
Oh, it was phenomenal. That's the best match I've ever seen. And you know, they put Nia Jax in this position where she's too stiff, she's sloppy, but she hurts people. And they put her in with somebody who has legitimately hurt people, and you want to see it. Because we still want to see some fake impression of combat. We want to think it's real. And those are two people that you believe. Ronda brings the real. Ronda's the Brock Lesnar of the women's division. Ronda elevated the women's division by giving them that thing you had to overcome. That badass, that big boss at the end of a video game. Okay? You get to your boss fight, and then you win. And you get happy about it. But if you don't have a boss to a boss fight, you're just, what do you do?
Well, speaking, part of the issue is the boss took her ball and went home. Sasha's been gone.
Yes.
So there's that. So her being gone hasn't helped. Of anybody who seems to have benefited from this whole situation, Bayley. I mean, Bayley's come on.
Yes. Bayley did real well. Bayley did real well with Sasha being gone. They rewarded her. Sasha pitched a fit and left, or pitched a fit and argued. Bayley stayed and was loyal. They rewarded her. But as much as I like Bayley's work, and Bayley is a favorite, Bayley's not really that over because she's almost like Eugene. You know? She's in that, she's never portrayed as that legitimate babyface. She's always, oh, it's Bayley. Or she's got the Bayley buddies and all that thing.
Well, I think, because, you know, she's going to take on Ember Moon at SummerSlam.
Okay.
I think if she can pick up the win on Ember Moon, I think she's starting to build uphill. The problem is she's going to have to continually win.
Yes.
And that's build up some steam.
Her Iron Woman match with Sasha Banks, one of the best matches ever at NXT, one of the best matches I've ever seen. It was phenomenal. Bayley has the work. Bayley has everything she needs. They just, of all the 4 horsewomen they brought up, they dropped the ball with her.
But she's still selling that merch, and that's what matters.
Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Back to the Rousey thing, I do want to ask you, did, you know, Rousey's run, did the brand split or lack thereof when they started, you know, spilling over from show to show with the women's evolution? Do you think Rousey taking out Alexa Bliss, taking out Charlotte, then taking out Charlotte, or she took out Nia before that, and then she took out, at Mania, she took out, you know, Becky finally gets the win, but, here's the but, then so Becky's on the top, Rousey goes away, and now you've gotten Charlotte who's been beat by Rousey, Alexa Bliss who's been beaten by Rousey, Nia Jax has been beat, you know, everybody's been knocked off. The problem with the program is with Ronda Rousey leaving, it set the table of Becky's, who she got left to fight.
Is Becky the heel?
Well, here's the question. You said that, and because based on what happened on Monday, maybe so. But baby Becky wasn't as over as everybody thought she was. Maybe everybody just wanted to see the battle with Ronda Rousey.
She never was developed as a character. She was over because the blood on her face and what she did in the ring and some stops where she showed. Her promos have never been done correctly. She wasn't super over. I mean, she was
No, she was. That's the problem. She was over,
but it was a visceral over. It wasn't a deep
but
over.
it was the rub. She over because it was standing there basically with Ronda Rousey. That was that her. You know, everybody's like, well, there was the Charlotte before that. Charlotte's a made woman at this point, and everybody doesn't want to hear that, but she is.
No, no, no. You can't. There's nobody has the innate swagger in the entire business that Charlotte has. She's a flair, for Christ's sake.
If you put Becky Lynch with anybody else, it doesn't seem like there's a luster there.
Put her with Charlotte, and it's magical.
Well, around Ronda Rousey, like we said, so much so, if you don't believe that at the core, I believe the WWF or the WWE thinks Charlotte's the star, because even though Becky is defending a title against Natty at SummerSlam, Trish Stratus and Charlotte's the rumored match to take place. By the way, we're recording this before SmackDown comes on.
Yeah, and I know Trish is going to be on there with Jerry Lawler tonight. Charlotte's over. Bring out Trish. Trish was over. This is a touch of the Raw reunion special marked in. Get more people to watch SummerSlam. SummerSlam's a big event. SummerSlam's the number 2 pay-per-view. You got to have some twinkle on it.
Okay, Trish and Charlotte could be. It's like I said. It's the rub from a legend. And Charlotte maybe starts her run. This is, to me, I'm going to go out on prediction. This is the beginning of Charlotte's run.
Yes. That's how that works. You bring in somebody who was a legend, who was a Hall of Famer over. They put over somebody else that gets that person more over. Then when she goes to start the run to take the title belt back, she's at a higher position. She elevates herself in the contender ranking. She's not Ember Moon. She elevates her past Ember Moon.
That's the problem. Charlotte is already a head and shoulders above Ember Moon, and Ember Moon's getting the shot.
Yes.
So it's all about, like I said, hopefully they can turn this around. The women can slowly start its elevation back up. But as of right now, I say it's fading a little bit, and they've got to fix it.
Well, this they agreed 100%. This leads us into our next topic, because Impact is building a dynamite women's division, Nick.
You're not kidding.
They just signed to Neil Dashwood. They've got Kiera Hogan. They've got Jordan Grace, who's somebody of all the talent on the WrestleCade roster. Speaking of this WrestleCade, we're going to do some stuff. I'm going to break down the people who I want to get autographs from. Jordan Grace is at the top of the list. She couldn't make it last year. That's when I want to get an autograph. I want an autograph picture of Jordan Grace because I think she's that over. Okay? They're bringing.
She's over with you. If nothing else, she's over with you, right?
Whatever. She is over everywhere. She is a master on Twitter. She's got social media. I want to see her. She's on Impact. Where do I see Impact?
All right. Well, you got some news about all that. This week was just a crazy week.
I studied on this. Impact was in talks with AXS, who is owned by Mark Cuban and that what's the guy's name? Ryan Seacrest, basically. Impact is owned by Anthem. Anthem was in talks, not just to get Impact on their television network. They're going to try to buy Access. That's insane. Just get them on that net. They've already got a Saturday night program with New Japan and WOW. Get yourself in that mix. Elevate your product. Don't try to take it away from them. Right now, you're not doing a very good job putting wrestling over. Because you own the Pursuit channel. You sent your wrestling there. Send your wrestling to somebody else. Get it over. Put it in a higher position, then you can talk about stuff like that.
Well, networks buy each other all the time, so that part didn't really bother me as far as them trying to buy them. But if it didn't happen,
I'm hoping they can get on there.
Yeah, I'm hoping because I know you said they're still kind of working out the details. They're in talks. They're in trouble maybe, but they're still going on, which is good.
Yeah,
but I'm hoping they can.
To Neil Dashwood now, they've got Rosemary, Jessica Havoc, Nevaeh Christ.
Tessa Blanchard. They've got Tessa Blanchard.
Who is probably their biggest star right now.
Yeah.
Okay. They have a who's who of high-end, I hate to say indie talent, women's talent, because they did, but they still get to work other places. These are people that we could go and see. locally, or Tennessee, or
And have. Yeah.
Yeah. I love what they're doing, but if they're not on television anywhere, nobody's going to see it. I mean, I've got the Twitch link set right there in my browser, and I can go see it anytime I want to, but I'm not the average person who consumes television. And they have to market to those people. I have no idea who's in their men's division. Mundo left.
Well, I mean, you got Brian Cage. He's the big.
Drake left.
Rich Swann's there. Callahan's there. I mean, they've got some talent. There's no
on
Rhino's back. RVD's been popping in and out. I mean, so
Callahan is out of MLW, but Swann's on MLW. I just watch MLW for the man. I mean, you're gonna have to distinguish yourself to be able to do that, and they've got to do something. They've got to get on a bigger TV channel. well,
the part of this is like when we were discussing this, is it's going to lead us into the next thing. I think sometimes people fall into a trap of when they're comparing, Impact to WWE, Ring of Honor to WWE, and at this point, I hate to say this, even AEW to WWE, because standards should be different from promotion to promotion, which is going to be our next topic. It came from an article that Steve Cooks wrote over at the thechairshot.com. Credit to Steve. Like I said, it was standards for wrestling feds, non-WWE. And we kind of lump Impact and Ring of Honor together because you got to think about it this way. They're kind of, in a weird way, they're not, but they're kind of the same. They're in a different position. They relatively, the name in the wrestling business, everybody knows who they are, right? So it's kind of equal.
Well, they were 2-3 that automatically just went to 3-4,
right? But even in their prime, when you realistically think about it, Ring of Honor during the Gabe Sapolsky era, Impact during the Spike TV era, and people called them the number 2 company. They've never really, on a lot of the metrics and even other things like production level, the attendance, merch, pay-per-view buys, etc. They never really were on par with WWE, and that's not a shot. That literally is just statistically speaking, that's a fact.
Well, you don't have to be W level to be profitable and successful. Okay, MLW has a legit television contract. They're paying their stars, and everybody I know on that roster is happy to be there. Success.
Right. And see, I would probably lump them into the same group, but again, because it's not a disrespect, because if they're setting a goal here and they're attaining that goal, and WWE's way up here, it's okay. You can still be a successful company and not be the WWE. And sometimes when you look at those companies for miscellaneous reasons, Sinclair Broadcasting, they have more money than WWE. But they're not a wrestling company. They're a TV company. They want a 1-hour program for their channels, and that's what they're going to pay. And as long as they're not losing money, they're happy.
Well, I mean, how many promoters have we talked to that said if they could draw 300 every show, they'd be super happy?
If they were 300, if they were drawing 300 and they were making good money, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, because, I mean, if we look at your typical breakdown, talent, venue, blah, 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 2,000. Other 1,000 is in cash and straight profit. I mean, that's good money for a side job. I think promotions like Impact, as long as they're selling ads and bringing in revenue, they're successful. They're not getting McMahon successful, but McMahon successful is a whole nother level. It's a whole nother level to do that whole thing. It's way up there. I mean, it's like you're Coca-Cola. You can still be successful being Dr. Pepper and make a lot of money being Dr. Pepper, but you're not Coca-Cola. I mean, you
could be RC Cola.
You could be RC Cola. As long as people at RC Cola got their bills paid, they're happy.
Yep.
You look at, I'm sure, if we just look at chicken franchises, Kentucky Fried Chicken has been the big dog for so long, but Churches and Popeyes and Bojangles aren't hurting. They're doing fine.
Yep.
And I think other people trying to say, hey, you got to be Kentucky Fried Chicken. No, we don't have to be Kentucky Fried Chicken. We want to be Bojangles. Shout out JC.
Well, the epitome of that, if you want to talk about that, the epitome of that right now is AEW.
Yes.
People saying like, oh, they're comparing them to WWE right now. It just isn't fair. And I know I'm guilty of it. Is everybody saying like, when I say it, I'm saying it's calling chicken it. It's calling us. Calling it what I see it. And by that I mean like, do they deserve some leeway? Yes, they deserve some leeway because they're new, they're inexperienced, they're going to learn on the fly. Now, some people would argue, well, they should hire people for production that are not inexperienced and that are getting used to getting the legs. But it doesn't matter how experienced you are. Trust me, this guy has moved from management, moved to a different company. You got to learn how the new company works.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then you can get your feet under you, and then all of a sudden you'll be back to where, and you keep accelerating. But I do, on the other side, by the way, think that you can't have a blind allegiance and not call out anything and say, because there's some things you're like, okay, they should know better, right?
Exactly. The way AEW is being booked, I would think would be something Cody, just watching his father, would be doing differently. Now he's getting himself over, not so much everybody else on the card.
Well, I mean, we've joked about it along the way. If you know who's eventually going to be over, who's going to be getting the wins along the way. Now, that all being said, when they're running on TV and they're on TNT weekly and they've got weeks and weeks, and the next thing you know, there's a year under the belt. Okay, that window closes of saying like they shouldn't be compared to WWE, because at that point, if you're claiming you're a big time promotion, you're on a cable channel, and you've got time to kind of show who you are, then I think they're going to be the first ones that are going to be, to me, on that equal level of, okay, you can compare them to WWE, but in some areas you would expect 30, 40, 50 years of experience, they would have an advantage. But if you're trying to say you're better, the second you say you're better, then you're compared on the same field.
Well, they're going to try to do 52 weeks of live TV. And that's different than having a tape program that you release in increments for 52 weeks a year. 52 weeks of live TV is travel to different venues, bringing production along with you, setting things up. It's a lot of headaches, and the WWE has mastered that. The WWE can go to any venue in the country and make the stage look the same. Boring, but they can do it. Mm-hmm. AEW going to highlight venues, going to make things look differently. That sounds good to me. It is different change, but are you going to be able to keep producing a show? The WWE wrestlers can walk out a gorilla down the ramp and know what it's supposed to look like anywhere in the country. It's homogenized. It's a product. It's easier to produce when everybody knows where the cues are and everybody knows where to stand. If where to stand changes every week, like that ramp at Fyter Fest or Fight for the Fallen, that was a different venue. That was a different, and I loved it. But you're not going to be able to wrestle in that venue 52 weeks a year. You're not going to get to be able to wrestle in the studio. You're not going to be able to get used to where stuff is.
But if they're going to mix it up and make it a thing, make the production different and things like that. That all being said, if WWE is the standard bearer, does AEW? The question becomes, when do they eventually have to fall under the same comparison levels? Because right now you're going to give them a little leeway because they're new. So, but now I'll tell you, there's another company. I do that with air quotes, by the way. You couldn't see it if you're listening to us on the podcast. NXT falls under a weird umbrella because everybody says, well, they're the same as WWE. Or there's others that say, no, they're two different companies.
Well, they're a WWE product only.
They're wholly a WWE product, but Steve pointed out something very, very good in this article that made me think, and it was really good. It was really just kind of eye-opening when you think about it. NXT is actually two companies, not WWE. NXT is the brand that runs takeovers and they do the TV show and stuff like that. That's NXT, right?
Yeah.
Then there's what I effectively now call, based on this, is NXT PC. This is the performance center talent that actually travels Florida and wrestles in smaller like armories and civic centers and
They sprinkle in some of the bigger talent to sell tickets.
right.
But it's mainly guys that are trying to get work, because you have to get working in front of crowds, working events. You can practice in the gym all you want to, but if you're not out there working in front of people, you don't really learn the hook. And I look at those Florida shows and I see the crowds. I'm like, I really would be able to, I'd love to be down there and be able to see that. I'd love to be able to go to those shows on a regular basis.
It's the only thing I miss about living in Florida when I see the quality level of shows and as many promotions run down there, that I would love to live there now just for the promotions and stuff like that. And that's not just NXT, it's all the indies, which is the last one we're going to talk about. This one I thought was kind of comical to some degree. Because nobody, think about this, when you're talking about comparison levels, like you should never ever on any fandom level, if you're a WWE fan and you go to an indie show, should you remotely say like it's not as good as WWE? I would turn to you and go, no kidding.
Well, I mean, what'd you pay for your ticket?
There's the point, because no one can come close to that production level and all that kind of stuff because they don't have enough money to do it.
Nope.
They don't have enough talent as far as they don't have enough money to pay talent like Seth Rollins and Brock Lesnar to come in and give you that. Long-term booking's hard. We joked about this because wrestlers leave promotions, wrestlers quit, wrestling period, they get injured. Hell, you just hope they all show up.
Yeah, I mean, how many shows have we gone to where, I mean, it's happening less because the promotion in Georgia are getting better. Well, we've been to shows where 5 guys on the card didn't show up and the main event had to be redone. I mean, it's the main event, the thing people are really paying to see, has to be redone. You not got that when you've got a group of guys on a plan going to be somewhere, and you can make sure they get there, and they've got bookers and handlers and agents and stuff taking care of that. It's not just, well, it's Saturday night, 6 o'clock, who's here? Well, we're going to work the rest of the program around. We've seen that.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, Todd Sexton hasn't had this problem probably in a year and a half now. But I've seen Todd Sexton running around like a chicken with his head cut off before, trying to figure out what he's going to do and save a show.
And it's not at his fault. It's somebody not showing up.
Nobody showed up. People show up now because they book the same regular talent over and over again. That's what Southern Fried has done the best with, in my opinion, is taking people who are going to be there every week, every 2 weeks, every month, getting them over and using them and depending on them.
But see, that's why you have a promotion that stands. When you have a good promotion,
yes,
like theirs is the storytelling, and as well as Southern Honor, they have their production levels nobody can touch, because of the talent they have with Dylan and Nathan and those guys, that they can stand out head and shoulders above the rest of the promotions. Because at the bottom line, Steve in this article wrote, because truth be told, at an indie show, you're hoping they run the show, they pay their wrestlers, all the fans are entertained, and no one dies.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's the bare bones standards for an indie promotion.
Yeah.
So anybody that goes head and shoulders above that stands out and looks entertaining, and that's how they're making money, and they're doing so well. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Kind of funny, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, I mean, how many times when we first started doing this, where we'd go up to something and like to see this big fancy show, and we got something simple. I mean, the first show we went to was a charity show, and we didn't know what to expect out of these promotions. We go to new promotions, and what do we expect out of a new promotion we've never seen before? You expect it to be WWE? No, you got to kind of just set your sights somewhere and embrace it. Just embrace it for what it is. If it's good, be super excited. If it's okay, don't be disappointed.
Know what you're getting into, and like that goes back to the article of you should have your standards set and know what you're getting into, and not everything's going to compare to WWE, whether it be Ring of Honor, Impact, AEW, and even NXT. Even the Indies. Know what you're getting into and just go in and love it.
I don't think anybody in Georgia can, in my opinion, can compare to Southern Honor or Southern Honor for promotion, for production, for bringing in outside people. Can't compare to that. Southern Fried for storylines and talent that's super over and an insane fan base. You can't compare them.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to get into some Georgia Indie Talk. But before we do this week our Georgia Indie Talk is sponsored by DBK Lures. That's
Yes.
dbklures.com. I personally know the owner of this company. He has actually manufactured lures. I know a lot of people like fishing, right? Fishing's always a good thing. It's always a good relaxing time. If you're wanting to get away from some wrestling, just go relax. Hit out, especially in this area. You can hit out on Lake Lanier, hit the river, the Chattahoochee, get some fishing in. Brian, like I said, owner of DBK Lures, he actually markets and makes for some actual tournament winners, like bass tournament winners, that names you would know. He actually manufactures them. He hand makes all the lures.
I've seen his work. It's impressive. Okay. And I was someone who wanted to be a professional fisherman at one time. These are quality products. He can make colors, sizes. He's got a website where you can purchase your products.
Yep.
It's pretty cool.
That website again is DBK Lures. That is dbklures.com. So check out my buddy Brian's products over there, and I think you'll love them. He can even make you a custom pole, everything. So check all that out over at DBK Lures. Well, let's get into that Georgia Indie Talk, man. Let's
pull up a card.
Pull up a card because this weekend, while you're pulling the card up, hold that card for a second because I want to talk about something that's kind of really meant a lot to me anyway, and I know it has you too because we've talked about it off air. Lots of promotions in Georgia reaching out to us now, wanting us to come to their show. And it's not for a lack of like wanting to see them. It's between scheduling and it's between distance and a lot of that. But we are, some names on our radar: Spinebuster, Viral Pro, Victory Championships, actually in Alabama, but they've actually been reaching out. So we kind of
they run some in Georgia.
In Georgia, yeah. And then Wrestle America. A lot of people have told me, "Hey, check this out." That's the one in Barnesville, right?
Yes, and they actually were the same people that ran that Continental Reunion show we went to down in Blakely.
Yeah, so
we're cool. I love that day.
Yeah, and Anarchy up at Cornelia has invited us. We've been to Anarchy shows, so it's not like we don't. It's not like I said. It's not we don't want to go see them, but it's just we'll get in there. We're making some concerted efforts.
For me, every other Saturday is a 10-hour workday. I don't get off till 7 p.m. I'm exhausted. Most days, I do good to have the strength to drive home. For me able to light up and go to a wrestling show, that's going to take a lot out of me, and I'm getting older.
Well, it doesn't help when the show's 3 hours away. All right, I mean, so
exactly. Here's the thing, and this is my little rant about indie promotions, not just Georgia, all over. Make your stuff shareable. I'm not the godfather of Georgia wrestling, but I've got personally on Facebook 1,600 friends. You've got
25, 26, something like that.
On the page, Twitter, 8,000 people. I almost got 2,000. Make it shareable. I'll share it. If I like something, I'll share it. If I like just a post, like I need a wrestler for X date, or I'm open on this. If you're a wrestler and you're open a certain date and I like you, I'll repost it. Make your stuff shareable. That's how you promote. It's free. I can understand if you don't want pictures of your kids, if you blur your personal and your wrestling Facebook.
Which you should not do, by the way.
No, never do that. Kayfabe, shoot. Keep it that way. If you blur those lines, make those pictures of your kids where nobody can share them. But the stuff you want to promote, it's free. It's a marketplace. Other people will share it. Other people will watch it. Casey Carlisle is to me the epitome of someone who promotes and books herself properly. She has a website. She's always got a consistent mission on social media. When she loses, she posts about, I lost, but I still did this. And she posts pictures of her belts. Brittany Nicole, ring announcer out in New Orleans. Website, always promoting herself. Her stuff's always shareable, and it's full of tags. That's how the internet works. Okay? Tags, share, tweets, hashtags. More people see it. Maybe one person out of the 1,600 people I'm friends with on Facebook sees it and will go. But if I can't share it, they ain't going to go. Just make it shareable. It's not that hard. Think about that. Think about how you're producing yourself, how you're promoting yourself. It's no different than putting up posters, because that poster, if you put something up on your wall not shareable, that's the same as putting a poster on an ice cooler, like an ice box out in front of a gas station in your hometown.
Well, and it's facing the wrong way.
Yeah, facing the wrong way. Nobody sees it but a couple of people.
I think the funny thing is, you texted me about this earlier today, and what I said, if you put your post, you're a promoter, and you put a post on Facebook, but it's not shareable, you're not a promoter, you're a poster.
Yes, you're a poster. I don't mean to bash on people, and I know some people are older and don't get the internet, and some people, but if you don't get it, ask this guy, not me, that guy, because that guy, Nick McDaniel, knows how to get something over online. That guy knows how to handle internet marketing. That guy knows how to produce a podcast. If you want to know how to do that stuff, how will they find that, Nick?
Well, man, we've been talking about this for a while. I know some people have been asking, and here's the funny. I will fully give out credit to where credit is due. So, Stephen Platinum's done some reviews for us, of our show, and he's kind of, put it over pretty well. I mean, he likes the show.
It helps.
It helps, and it has helped. He loves your voice, tolerates mine, loves our structure.
And also, Myron is never afraid to kiss an ass.
No, he's not. That is true. When he did, a few people kind of reached out and was like, "Hey, well, how do we do your show?" Bob, some stuff like that. And I thought, you know what, man, maybe we should do some seminars. Maybe we can get out there and say, like, look, don't make the mistakes that we made. I mean, we're 3 years into this, 600 plus episodes of production, and social media, tags and all this kind of stuff. Up to the point that we finally, we got on Jarrett Parsons Wrestling Television, and that all how that worked. Exactly. You can find it on your Roku. Matter of fact, I was showing somebody at my office today. I have a Roku TV in my office at my regular job, and I showed them, and on the Amazon Fire Stick, exactly. And so I showed them that. But anyway, so we had to learn how to do, this production that you're watching, if you're watching it on Facebook or Roku or whatever. So it's one of these things of like seminars of like, it's not like we know everything, but I can tell you lots of things not to do.
I can't get in a ring. I've never been in a ring. I can't tell you how to wrestle. But I can say, get business cards and get merchandise that identifies a constant product.
There's lots of stuff out there, like I said. And then, so if you want to and you're interested in it, email us at tappedoutpod@gmail.com. DM us on Twitter at tappedoutpod, Facebook message us, Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast, all that good stuff. Because I've actually got a few names. We're putting it together. I want to kind of put it together because to make it worth our time, we could have a Q&A afterwards where there's a few, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, people involved in doing it. And it's funny because one of the questions we got asked about it this week when people were asking me about, hey, can you tell me this? I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about putting a seminar together. I don't really want to give out everything,
I don't want to show you how the sausage is made.
So
the sausage factory. Nick has put a lot of hard work in this, and I mean, I've done a lot of stuff, but Nick has really done a lot of stuff behind the scenes. I don't think anybody understands, and he just sits out there and he researches software and he does this stuff. And if you're going to get into a podcast, you can ask me how to get in a podcast, and I can tell you a couple things. But you want hardcore details about how to do it, he's the man. And if you're going to be serious about this, spend some money. It's not going to be expensive on the grand scheme of things, because I've got stacks of equipment over here on this desk that I've bought to try and been useless.
And that's kind of like I said, that's the stuff in the seminars that I think that, I'd love to get out there. But let's get to where we were going with all this, because everybody was asking, like, well, what podcast do you listen to? They were just curious. And our answers are going to blow your mind probably, because, well, probably not, because it's when you see our names, at Myron the Mark TOP on Twitter, and of course Tapped Out Nick. We're two different things here when we're talking about podcast. So this week's 3 on Tap, we decided the topic would be, what are your 3 top go-to podcasts that you listen to, not ours. We're just talking about like just other stuff you listen to. Kind of what are they? So Myron, let's start. The 3 on tap. I'll get you. What's your first one?
Okay. I'm almost like a history buff about everything. And as far as wrestling history, I have 3 podcasts that hit all my basics. The best expert on wrestling in the country, in my opinion, is Jim Cornette. You may not like his politics. You may have to wade through stuff you don't agree with. I'm not saying how I feel about that because I don't talk about politics. But I'm telling you, nobody has a better historical mind and can tell you dates from shows 40, 50 years ago that he wasn't even born for. He can tell you who Jim Cornette, the experience and the drive-through, to me, I see that as one show. I listen to every one of them. Historical, tells you about character development. Jim knows wrestling better than anyone else in the world, in my opinion.
Good call.
That's my call.
All right. My first one will really surprise some people. It's like a network of podcasts called Parcast, and the show that I'm a big fan of, they have several that I actually have listened to. One of my favorite ones is it's just conspiracy theories. If you're on Apple Podcasts and you Google conspiracy theories, it'll come up. It's the first one. And everybody asks, oh my God, are you one of those? And I'm like, one of those what? Conspiracy theorists. No, I'm not. And the funny thing about what I love about the show is it is not hosted by conspiracy theorists. It's 2 regular people. They do, every topic is typically broken into 2 weeks. They give you what I affectionately now call, this is the government issued fact. This is what everybody has told you. This is what the facts are. Week number 2, they just addressed 2, 3, 4, conspiracy theories attached to those things. And the reason why I tell people that they should listen to it, it's not because I don't believe every one of them I listen to. It makes you think.
Yes.
It challenges the status quo, and it just says, don't always believe everything you're told. Everything you're told is not fact. Dig a little on your own, do a little research, and figure out what you believe to be the truth. Exactly. So that's my first one.
Thought-provoking.
Bless you.
My second one, it's still going to fall into the Brian Last class, but it's not about Brian Last, in my opinion. None against him. Ron Fuller Studcast. Ron Fuller was not only a predominant force in my childhood wrestling experience growing up in Birmingham, but Ron Fuller is one of the stars that reached out to us and communicated with us, and I'm still in awe. He talks to a couple fat guys that live in basements. I mean, no, we don't live in basements, but this is our studios. Ron Fuller vindicated me. Ron Fuller asked for pictures with us. When he was charging other people, he wanted to get pictures. How insane is that? Ron has always been nice and complimentary. When Ron wants something put over, he sends me the link, and I retweet it or repost it on Facebook or share it. And he likes it and appreciates it. But he's also, to me, someone who has a mind for the wrestling business. All my shows are wrestling based. I can't lie, okay? Because I don't want to hear anything about the real world, because this is my refuge. I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to hear all kind of crazy stuff. Nothing against your podcast choices. I want to hear about wrestling because it's something I really use for an escape mechanism. And Ron Fuller talking about the history and the backgrounds of these guys, talking about the Mongolian Stomper, like who he was. That kind of stuff pops me. History, how he pitched moving to a television network. when he was starting out the Southeastern promote. How he got NWA champions in to work his shows. Man, that stuff gets me, and I really enjoy it.
I will tell you this: that would have been on my list, but I didn't want to have like duplicates on the list.
Yeah,
So
I had to defer because
I had to defer the Studcats, because I will tell you this real quick: listening to Ron Full, and if I'm gonna like full commercial here, he has a Patreon that you should join. He gets some great stuff behind the scenes, and I'm gonna make it quick. And he's listening to a Studcast. With all due respect and love for the man, when I say this, because he knows I love him, it's like listening to your grandfather tell you stories. Yeah. In my case, it would be my father, but that's what it reminds me of, is listening to my grandfather tell stories, and he's got those stories in the world of pro wrestling that it's like,
but they're so
gold.
Detailed.
Oh yeah,
every little detail. Oh man.
Yeah. So if you're not listening, you should be. My second one, it is a wrestling podcast, sort of. Talk is Jericho to me is a podcast I think everyone should be listening to, because he doesn't cover just wrestling. And that's what I love about his show. He does have wrestlers on. And funny part is I don't listen to every episode that a wrestler's on, but I listen to most of the stuff where it's a non-wrestler. He does movie previews, like for the summer blockbusters. He does just all kind, music. He has musical guests. He had Kevin Smith on recently, and they did a watch along watching the Bad News Bears. It was a split between their two podcasts. I like the fact that he's not just wrestling. He's expanded out and he's creating other things outside of that. And to me, you've heard me say it a million times, I think Chris Jericho, quite possibly, if AEW is successful, Chris Jericho earns a spot on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling. But his podcast is already in my top 3.
I have to agree with it. Everything I've ever heard. I'm a Jericho mark. I've been a Jericho mark since the Ralphus days. The Y2J, the light up jacket, the list, the best friend special. Love that guy. Everything he's ever done, I've been a huge fan of.
And what's your last one, man?
My last podcast is another kind of, I grouped these two shows together. We're recording during one of the shows airing, because it airs live on Blog Talk Radio on Tuesday night, and I can't wait to hear it. It's The Tipping Point. This is the Georgia Wrestling History Podcast. The Tipping Point is to me, the most insightful podcast about what's actually going on in Georgia wrestling. It's the silent empire of Larry Goodman, who is the dean of Georgia wrestling. Stephen Platinum, who is the commentator, the guy who does color better on Georgia wrestling than anybody I know. And they do something called Peach State Pandemonium, which is 3 guys who have been there talking about what things were like when Ann Gunkel was running Atlanta. So Peach State Pandemonium is an acquired taste. I'll give it that. It is older guys, and there's quite frequent, I got to go to bed. It's time to get up. But if you can wade through that, you can get history lessons that you're not going to get anywhere. Not just about Georgia, but about indie wrestling and Georgia Championship Wrestling and what became WCW, the NWA. Dude, they tell stories about what it was like running when Jim Barnett ran into Ohio with Georgia Championship Wrestling and had to deal with Sheik on a personal level. That kind of stuff is really cool to me. It's the best History Channel like experience you're going to get, and it's through the Georgia Wrestling History Network. You can find that on georgiawrestlinghistory.blogspot.com. Thank you guys for putting that out, because I enjoy that just about more than anything else I listen to, and it's refreshing to hear a podcast that is so raw, where it's just guys telling stories.
Yep.
I love that. What you got left, man, to finish this off?
Well, my last one, again, because everybody just assumes it's going to be wrestling. It's not. It's kind of a double combo because of the way he does his show. By the way, if you want to know why this is an important one on the podcast, this podcast doesn't exist without it. Kevin Smith's podcast and Fat Man Beyond. If Kevin Smith doesn't do a podcast and Kevin Smith doesn't travel and do his little one-man shows and stuff, this podcast doesn't exist. So you can blame him if you don't like us. And everybody, like Kevin Smith, like, yeah, the guy who does Clerks, Dogma, Red Jay and Silent Bob, all that it's his fault. That's why we exist. I went to a show, because I love his podcast. I love his show. I went to one of his shows when he was here in Atlanta, and he just kind of made something that just hit home. It was like, man, if you've ever wanted to create, you've ever wanted to do something, just throw whimsy to the wind. Just do it, man. Just go do it. I mean, worst thing that's happened is, what? It doesn't work. He's like, okay, most things in your life, lots of things aren't going to work, so just do it. And so over 3 years ago, we're creeping up on 3 years now, and 600 plus episodes. I mean, I don't forget that I was like, that's where the inspiration came from primarily, was to do this podcast.
Well, I mean, Nick sent me links to a show. Nick sent me a couple of things. And one day, Nick sent me a screen capture of stuff he'd bought on Amazon to do a podcast with. I'm like, you want to do a podcast? I'm like, why not? Shit, I ain't doing anything creative. I'm just playing video games and talking shit. And that turned into something that's been rewarding. Thank you. I mean, I've loved everything Kevin Smith has done. The YouTube videos of the Kevin Smith talks, especially the one about working with Prince, are the best things I've ever seen. He's an inspirational figure. He's a guy, especially with his recent weight loss. I've been trying to emulate that. Yeah, thanks, Kevin. And I love that kind of stuff. And I love Kevin. I love all the things he's done. And I have to agree with you. That's a guy, if I had more time, that would be right up in there.
Well, I mean, I listen to him now just for kind of why. It's not just that. I mean, I'm a big comic book guy, obviously, which he is. I love his movies. I think they're really good. So he's just kind of a nerd. He's kind of like that's what he say. He's a nerd like us. So that's kind of why. But I love his podcast. That makes my list. And we always want to tell you, man, check all those out. All of them. You can find, I know for a fact, every one of these, subscribe to them somewhere. Just like we ask you to do for us if you want to support us. Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartMedia, Google Podcast, everywhere in the world. Subscribe to us, the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast Network. We would appreciate it. And then, man, always, like we say, follow us, somewhere on social media, because we're everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, we're all at Tapped Out Pod.
Tapped Out Pod. You put that. I had a guy. I was in a meeting for work the other day, and a guy's like, "Well, I heard you do a podcast. Well, where can I find it?" I said, "Put at Tapped Out Pod into Google." We sat there. We looked at it. Bam! Everything we did right there. You want to find us? That's all you have to do. Put at Tapped Out Pod into Google, Facebook, Twitter. All our different outlets, our website, everywhere you're going to find us. And the website's the greatest jewel to me in wrestling podcasting, because all of our interviews are there. Everything we've ever done is on the website.
Right, because I have had people ask me about the podcast, the RSS feeds. If you don't know what that means, there's going to be a seminar coming soon. You can check that out. But everything is not on all of the podcasts anymore. Especially the dated content, like when we were doing more of a review shows and stuff like that, I pulled those off, but every single episode is on the website. So if you ever wanted to just go back and look through the history, it's on the website, and that's simply at tappedoutpod.com. So, I mean, it's Tapped Out Pod is the key to finding everything. The only place that it's not, right, is we say, go over to Pro Wrestling Tees. It's prowrestlingtees.com/Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. And you can get some cool shirts like the Wrestling is Like Women shirt, the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast, the original tee, the Tapped That tee. But we always tell you, in our opinion, in our heart of hearts, the best place that you're going to get the value, patreon.com/Tapped Out Pod, because you're going to get all of the content. You're going to get exclusive stuff. You'll get the crazy pre-shows we do.
I'm really proud of that, the Patreon, because I think it provides a unique value, because it allows you to see the amount of hard work we put into preparing the show. Also, you get totally unedited. and just raw when Myron shoots and when Nick is like going off about something. And it's a lot of fun to me. The pre-shows to me are some of the most fun things we do. It's there. All our content's there. The little crap we do here, the little shows we do. We do a lot of stuff outside the main feed, and it all winds up there on the Patreon.
Right. And then there are levels where you can earn a free shirt. You can give us a topic you want us to cut a special show. All that stuff's there at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. But man, hey, we're running way out of time. So anything else before we get out of here, man?
Saturday night, going to Southern Fried.
Yep.
405 Community Court, Monroe, Georgia. 7 o'clock bell time. Doors open at 6. 15, 12, $10 tickets. Get out. It's old school Southern wrestling. After that, next week, unfortunately, I will be on work. You've got the Rumble, Jack, with another tapped out tailgate.
Shh, that's not official yet. We haven't made the announcement yet, but it is. Everybody knows. It's kind of, Myron's leaking, exclusive news here on the show. There will be another tailgate, by the way.
That was much fun. I am so sad I can't be there. I am heartbroken.
Well, we'll try to hold it down without you, man. We'll see if we can get by. But is that it for you, man? You got nothing else for me?
I got nothing else.
Well, what's the old saying, brother? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, man, what time is it?
It's time to tap out.